So there's a new sci-fi action game out called Pragmata. So this is a game where you play as an astronaut alongside a mysterious android girl called Diana, where you navigate a desolate AI-controlled lunar research station to survive and return to Earth. Sounds like a pretty simple, story-driven game, maybe in the similar vein to something like The Last of Us. But do you think that's what people are talking about online? No, they're not. What they are talking about is how this game potentially attracts the wrong type of, especially male people, towards little girls. So I've got an example tweet for you here just because it's probably the most popular one regarding this. As you can see down here, it's already been community noted, but it has 3 million views. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you or spend too long getting stuck on this before I discuss the actual issue, but essentially this tweet from Mary Morgan, I'm not sure who this is, but she basically talks about how childless men don't have paternal instincts towards kids that aren't their own. Men aren't nurturers. Men don't care about children. We only do care about children if it's to prolong our lineage. And if we do take an interest in children that aren't our own, then basically we're a predator. Thanks, Miriam. Thanks for tarring us all with the same brush. So now I just wanted to highlight this particular tweet, like I said, because it's gone viral, but there's heaps and heaps of other tweets about this as well, and comments on other sites such as Reddit with a very similar tune. So the reason I wanted to bring this particular subject up is it highlights a really, I guess, a subject that's somewhat close to my heart. Now, to give you a bit of an idea about my personal background, I am a father to a daughter. She just turned 9 yesterday. And comments like this are not helpful. So, as a father of a daughter, and I'm sure there's plenty of you out there as well, obviously there is, most men are not predators. Not to their own kids, not to other people's kids. Of course, there are plenty out there, and certainly the Epstein files has sort of brought a great deal of attention to it. And then you have other cultures where it's legal to marry children. So we're not going to delve too much into that side of things. But there are people out there who think it's okay to do things that I think is not okay to children. But thankfully, at least in the West, those people are very much a minority and, are punished accordingly if they do decide to act upon it. But the problem about this is, of course, highlights an issue with social media, is that people just freely, willy-nilly, every time something like this, where a game where you play as a father figure protecting a young daughter is seen as predatory because gamers are mostly male. This game's probably marketed towards mostly male because that's the style, action adventure. And then because you're protecting a young girl, she naturally is the desirable object of attention for lonely male gamers, and not in a way that a father would like to interact with their own daughter in a protective manner. So I'm obviously beating around the bush here, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So all these tweets basically assume intent. So they're not reacting to weird behavior. They're essentially assuming the motive up front. Like I said, single males playing games must have bad intentions whenever a young girl is introduced. I have no doubt that there's plenty of guys out there. In fact, I'll show you right now, the very next tweet was regarding a decent sized account getting banned because apparently in the 2020 trailer for this game, the android girl Diana pretty much was relatively exposed from the waist down. Nothing too below the belt, but at least to a point that people who have an unhealthy attraction to young people could potentially find this exciting. So the game maker decided to obviously give her a bit more modesty in that regard, probably because they might have been getting similar comments to this, and this person complained about it directly to the game company and were banned, and later the account got banned off Twitter, so which is good. So it does show that there are people like that out there, and we know that this is the case. But I think the issue here is that society, especially in the West, seems to have an issue with males having relationships with younger females that aren't sexual in nature because they just assume that they have to be. And I'm like I said, I'm not going to sit here and deny that a lot of the times relationships can turn out that way between males and females because I look on the news recently and I see a spate of female teachers having relations with underage male students. So we know what happens the other way as well. It just doesn't happen to have the same stigmatism because we look at it differently, as a society, for better or for worse. But assuming that everybody that has an interest in this kind of game and this way is attracted to children is inherently wrong. And it's just tarring people with the same brush in a way that they don't deserve. Because imagine you go to talk about this game and you don't know about 3 million people plus all reading about this, all assuming that, obviously not everybody's going to agree with the post, but all assuming that people that play this game play it because they're attracted to young girls, because your only interaction with this title is people saying that they're sexualizing a young girl. You're going to think it's some weird goon of slop, right? So somebody says, at work, I'll play this game Pragmata, and all you've seen is this. Well, what are they going to think about you? And this happens time and time again whenever it's a similar thing, similar forms of media. People just jump on and go, older man, younger woman has to be predatory. And this is a shame. This is a real shame for us as a society as a whole because we saw it with the Me Too movement. And I think at its heart, it was probably a good thing to call out a lot of those bad actors, literally bad actors in Hollywood and other, companies and various places that were using their status as, people who were senior. And it was mostly focused on older men and younger women being taken advantage of. But as we saw with Katy Perry, women on women, and, Rose McGowan, same thing. And then some of the other stuff was women on men. So it didn't get highlighted as much because people don't seem to take that as seriously for some reason. Might be going a bit off piste here, but it's the same thing with domestic violence. Apparently the domestic violence numbers for men being abused by women are actually higher, at least in Australia, than the other way around. But obviously the severity is different when it goes male to female, as we know. But this kind of stuff just basically grows our social divide further and further apart, and then people take sides, and then, it just all blows up and becomes an even bigger problem for us as a society, with issues like Pragmata and other things just being a flashpoint for people to express their dissatisfaction or even a hatred with, the opposite gender, different religions, different races, but use it in a moral grandstanding way to try and get people to think that they're on, quote unquote, the right side of history and they're coming from a morally superior standpoint. This just seems to be how the internet works now. It always was pretty bad, but I think people sort of got along. There was a lot of, censorship, and growing up as a millennial, the politically correct times, or PC, which just seemed to get worse and worse over time. And there seems to be a bit of a backlash to it where now people are just taking sides in any argument and treating it like their favourite sports team, instead of looking at nuances involved and just scoffing at it and going, well, this whole thing's just rubbish. If you're entering this debate, for a lot of people, you have to take a side. You have to either be on the side of all single male gamers who play this game are gooners, or everybody who complains about it is, let's say, a far left libtard or something like that. There's no in between. There's no nuance. And this is probably the main point of my thing. I guess the majority of people don't really think that way, but you are pushed to take a side. And as creatures of habit and humans who want to be accepted into society, we naturally gravitate towards taking a side. It's the same in politics. Maybe this is an expanded conversation, but, look at politics in what's happening here in Australia. We've got One Nation pushing up against Labor, who's, One Nation being probably the right-wing conservative version of our Republican Party, but always a minor party. But now they're the second most popular one suddenly out of nowhere because people are pushing back on this kind of stuff. Do I agree with some of their policies? Yes. Do I disagree with some of theirs? Yes. Same goes for the opposite party. But the problem is that these kind of things are conditioning you to pick a side in every single argument, no matter what. So when the argument scales from internet about a game about a little girl, one side being gooners and one side being anti-liberals or whatever, that blows up and scales up into politics. And you pick a side, one or the other, it doesn't really matter. And everything that they promote or have to say, even if you disagree with it, you just end up waving the flag and agreeing with it anyway because you have to pick a side. So basically, I guess the mission of this has scaled out a bit of my original intention. But I feel that issues like this on the internet are very representative of what I'm trying to say in some of my videos on this channel, that you can pick things you like from either side, but never go all the way in. Because yes, some things will resonate with you from the left, some things will resonate with you from the right, but not everything has to. That's all I wanted to say on this particular video. So if you like the video and this style of content, please give me a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. This is probably just my version of shower thoughts, so a bit different than my usual stuff, but just doing something a bit different in this type of content from what I normally do, just to do it a bit less unscripted and get to give you guys a bit of an idea of what I'm actually like as a person in real life. So until then, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.